Hello and welcome back to the How to Get an Analytics Job podcast. So this podcast episode has been what, Hunter, 2 years in the making at this point?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's almost 2 years. It's been like a year and 10 months or something like that. It's
Which
crazy.
is incredible. So
Can't believe I've put up with you for that long.
all right. So what we're going to be doing in this session is I'm going to be coaching Hunter on the process of him getting ready to apply for jobs, the interview process, and then also thinking about what type of jobs that you want to go through. So Hunter, catch us up. What's going on in your life right now?
Yeah, so I'm a graduating senior from High Point University. If you guys remember, that's where I first met John David and how I got involved with the podcast. I've been doing analytics work for about 2 years now. So I started out doing a consulting engagement for a client worth over $750 million in yearly revenue. And then from that point on, I went on to launch my own consulting business, and that's gone pretty well so far. And then now I'm looking to potentially expand into some maybe bigger companies or something like that. Just see where the next step is in my career path.
Gotcha. So we're catching you. You have what, 3 months left before you graduate?
Yep, 3 months.
Gotcha.
I can
All
see
right.
home base.
That's true. So how's the is the senioritis hitting hard right now?
A little bit from maybe the schoolwork perspective, only because I'm so ready to get out there and actually start doing the work that I've been preparing for.
Well, okay. So I guess we need to update the audience on kind of where this episode is coming from. So over the last 2 months, we've added Ian Clausewitz and Katie Underwood to our team at Silvertone, and I've essentially pivoted from Silvertone Analytics as a consulting agency to Silvertone Analytics as a career services company. So Katie has, I think, she's got 9 years of working experience, 5 years as in an analytics position, and I think 2 or 3 as an analytics manager.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like a foil to me in a lot of ways, in that I focus on sales and marketing in much smaller companies, to where she's been huge companies, Lincoln Financial, and working on the operations supply side. So I'm thinking about expanding and she's thinking about shrinking things down. She brought up a really excellent point for you, Hunter, of if you get your first job at one of these larger companies, you're probably going to have a manager who can mentor you, opportunities to get training from these big companies. And also, we're not going for like Google, because the tech bubble has popped and there's been a hiring freeze across all the tech industry, but
Right.
that kind of Google effect, so to speak. So the next thing we're going to talk about is you've already gotten an interview at Gartner.
Yeah.
So if you get one of these big name companies like as your first job, it kind of sets the tone for the rest of your career. And
Absolutely.
This is something, we've seen this with Megan Liu. So Megan, I think her first job was at Ernst & Young, or one of the big 4 consulting firms. And that they just worked her to death for like the first year and a half. Then she got another job, but that first job for her like really set the tone for the rest of her career.
Yeah, and that's what I'm excited to be looking for. I've been looking somewhere in the $70,000 range or upwards of that. First starting out, I think I'm more interested in, like you said, continuing that lifelong learning journey.
Mm-hmm.
Just figuring out where the next step is for me to continue to grow. I've been doing Tableau, Power BI, Excel work for pretty much the whole time. I feel like I'm really proficient in these tools, but I feel like there's more places that I can go, more things that I can apply my knowledge of communicating with the C-suite level executives I've been communicating with. And yeah, I would like to see where I can expand out to.
Well, I think it would be interesting. Let's unpack the trade-off of, so my career path has been, I started off in sales, did 100% commission sales work for 3 years. Like when I was your age, that's what I went into a sales job.
Hmm.
Then pivoted into getting an MBA with concentration in analytics, and then turned my last internship into my first consulting client. And I've never worked as a W-2 analyst other than 2 internships.
Hmm.
Um, Bringing Katie on board, I'm starting to realize the limiting factors of that. So I'm the largest company I've worked with actually was the one that, I handed off to you. So that's, less than $1 billion, to where if you work for these massive companies, they have so much money, they have so much data. They also have people who've been working in that space for years. So I think it'll be an interesting kind of juxtaposition of working for me in Silvertone with these smaller clients versus going and working for these like huge multinational companies.
Yeah, and I wanna talk about a couple things you said in there. Like, you said that when you first started your journey, that you were pretty slowly exposed to, sales and marketing and the analytics space as a whole. This is something that, because I've been able to work at a startup for the first 2 years of my journey, I've kind of been exposed to all of that already, in a limited capacity. Sure, maybe not,
Right.
fully fleshed out, but at least exposed to it, so I know enough to be dangerous, which is what I think is has been your value add for myself. Um, is that you've kind of you, as in a mentor capacity, you let me know, like, hey, this is what I did, this is where I ended up. Here's how you can get to where you want to end up, and that's something that you and I have talked about a few times.
Yeah, well, and I think having both Katie and Ian on the team, because Ian is working for a sales company as well as an analyst full time. So just expanding out the perspectives. So let me ask you this: let's say you've worked on um, with that large company, you've worked on operations, you've worked on sales, you've worked on marketing. Which of those types of projects did you enjoy the most?
I gotta say I enjoyed the operations side of things most. I don't know if that was just because it was my the closest I was to communicate. I shouldn't even say that, because I was communicating really closely with Hugh as well, who was
Yeah.
one of the clients that we had. But the company, that the logistics company that we were working with, the operations side of things was really cool to examine. Because it felt like there was always one more question to ask. Like,
Okay.
like, we got here. How did we get here? Or, we constructed an overtime cost dashboard or stuff like that.
So that's an interesting insight, and I feel like we need to have this high level conversation around, where do you want to fit within the space, and if okay, so what I'm hearing now is that you want to work on the supply chain or operation side. If you're working for, so what that tells me is that it needs to be a big company and probably selling a physical product, to where like if you go and work for a company that sells nothing but online courses, the operation side of that is not going to be as robust as, I mean, we had Sangeeta on. She worked for Bayer Pharmaceuticals and was a
Hmm.
sales analyst for them. So the operations on an organization like that is going to be huge and give you just a much bigger sandbox to play in, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. I think that, I've worked with HR data, and I've worked with sales data, and it's not that I don't like working with that data. It's just that there's something about operations that just clicks for me. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah, I feel
Cool.
like I'm just able to keep elaborating on things.
All right, so that kind of gives us a data point to start gearing towards like what jobs you want to start applying for. So probably a much larger company, and then it could manifest as operations analyst, supply chain analyst, ERP, those different types of jobs.
Do you think business analyst is too generic, or?
Business analyst. Yeah, so what you could have a business analyst role within the operations department or the supply chain team.
Okay.
So, and then that's where you would, because you had Christine in your call last night when you were doing the technical office hours.
Yeah.
So, she'd be a good person for you to talk to. So she's worked in a marketing analyst role for the last 9 months,
Hmm.
and what she was saying is that her technical acumen hasn't grown that much. So, like what she's doing is kind of the same analytics project or same types of analytics projects over and over and over again. But what she's learned so much is, how does Coca-Cola do their ads? She's specifically doing analytics on programmatic ads. So those are huge scale ad campaigns. So like Norwegian Airlines, Coca-Cola. So that first year, you can start to kind of dip your toe in the business side of things and really start to develop that acumen. Because the projects that you're working on now, I feel like the biggest thing you've learned is the analytics side, to where the clients, you don't have as much face time as if you were working there full time, to where you don't get as much exposure to the business use cases.
Yeah, I think that's probably a result of of consulting work as a whole. It's kind of a fast-paced line of work in that you take on a new client. They request your services for 4 to 6 months, and then they're like, thanks for your work, sayonara, sayonara. We'll let you know how it went.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's just kind of how it's been to this point. It'll be interesting to see how much different a larger firm or organization will handle that, because it'll be, their investment is in me, and they'll see my ROI that I produce for them over time.
Gotcha. All right. So I've been neglecting the live chat. So let's pull in some of the chats, and then we'll jump into your experience interviewing with Gartner. So Noel says hi. Hello, Noel. Welcome. So Paula's Picks, happy Friday. Hello and welcome. We got Kamar. Kamar, welcome. Glad that you're on the call. We got Victor, Assad, and then let's see. Paula was asking or saying she feels like she's watched you catapult. Can't believe that it's only been a 2-year evolution. So Hunter, I will say this: you have come a very, very far way from the kid who showed up with a skateboard and pajamas in my class 2 years ago at High Point.
Yeah, yeah. I'm no longer dressing in PJs.
That is so funny. And then interesting. I don't know why we can't see this name, but a LinkedIn user said, "Nice pivot, John. I'm in sales and making the change as well." Very cool. Yeah, it's my advice. LinkedIn user, I can't see your name. Is if you're pivoting into the space, leverage all of the knowledge that you've already developed. So maybe a sales analyst role would be an easy pivot for you. So we got Mohammed, welcome, and then Jamie, welcome. All right. So you've already landed an interview at Gartner.
Yeah.
Tell me, well, number one, how did this manifest? How did it go? And then how do you feel about it?
Yeah, so this manifested from a recommendation from a person that I had a connection with when I played baseball. Interesting
Okay.
enough, which was many many years ago.
But
And all
that's
I,
good because it's your network. It's people
Right,
that you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I didn't even think to reach out to him as as he worked at Gartner, because he works in a sales capacity for them, not in the analytics space. But my dad actually was the one that suggested to me. He was like, "Hey, maybe you should just call him and get some more information from him. Like,
Hmm.
just ask him about the company. Just what do they do? How does he like his job? Stuff like that." And I had a 15-minute phone call with him, and at the end of that 15-minute call, he recommended me for the position.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
so, yeah, yeah, and so I was able to through him reach out to or apply for the position, and then from that point, I reached out to the recruiter for that position, and I asked them, "Hey, listen, I just sent out my application. Is there any shot I could get a 30-minute phone call with you on Monday, just so we can review the role and you can see if I'm a quality candidate for you?" Um, and I was able to get the that's how I was able to get the interview for that. I think the interview went well. I ultimately I did hear back from them. I didn't get the position, but they said it's because they were looking for somebody who was looking to work immediately, and I'm not able to work immediately.
Okay, interesting. So
Yeah,
that's kind of the trade off here is that we're starting 3 months early before you could actually start full time.
right.
So yeah, I think that it might take because what we're going to do is get you to start scaling up how many jobs you're applying for. Ian's going to help you with building out your LinkedIn presence because you just broke 1,000 followers on LinkedIn at this point.
I'm actually at 1,500. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, I will say this: it is astounding to me how effective Ian has been because
Oh
I think
yeah.
we've had cumulatively over the last 4 weeks, our 8 students have gained what 12,000 additional LinkedIn connections, and 14 recruiters have reached out to them because of like for example, if I hope Drew's listening, I'll shout you out. Drew mentioned like he was posting about one of his portfolio projects, and he broke down in a post, hey, here's how I went through and cleaned the data. Here are the data quality issues I found. Turns out a hiring manager saw that post the next day, reached out to him for an interview. So
Wow.
like this is the level of sophistication. Like most people just post like rinky dink random things on LinkedIn, to where like if we can post with intention, I think that this is going to be just another, like think about it like you have multiple tools, so you can apply, you can network, and you can post on LinkedIn, and it's like a trifold approach to like breaking into the space.
Yeah, you and I a couple weeks back did some LinkedIn work together where we just reviewed a couple of
That's
things that
true.
I could post about, and we updated my profile. Um,
Yeah, we can pull up your LinkedIn. Actually, that's the next point I have for us to touch on is your LinkedIn and your resume.
yeah.
Um, so okay, so one thing, circling back to the Gartner experience, um, what we found with a lot of these name brand companies is that they don't often pay as well. Like this is a very counterintuitive insight that we found,
Hmm.
because two cohorts ago we had two students that were essentially comparable. They had 3 years of analytics experience at large companies, and one applied for a company that was 72 million, and one applied for a name brand insurance company. The person who applied for the much smaller company got a $25,000 higher offer than the person at the name brand company. And this is what's interesting about these jobs at like Gartner and these other really name brand companies, is that the competition is so much higher. So as far as supply and demand, there is much more of a supply of people who want to work at Gartner than there are positions. So they can kind of beat you up on price in a lot of situations, especially for entry level. I think as you get more advanced, I think when you go into mid to senior, the herd thins quite a bit, and you have a little bit more negotiating room. But like the way it worked with this insurance company is that our student applied, he got the interview. There was probably 5,000 people who applied. They whittled it down to 50 people, flew them all out to their headquarters, and then just cattle called them through the interview process. And I think they hired 5 of the 50. And then it was a really low offer for this guy's experience. And what was interesting is we encouraged him to negotiate, and they said, we're firm on this low price point.
Hmm.
Because if you think about it, there's 45 other people who are willing to take that job.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting thing to consider, especially for entry level jobs.
Yeah, and it's also another thing to consider is how risk averse a person is.
Right.
For myself personally, I mean, I'm a pretty I would say I'm a risk taker more than I am risk averse.
Hmm.
I wouldn't I it's not uh, as impactful for me to get a job at one of these huge firms for less money as it would be to maybe take a job for that's for a smaller company, that 10 years down the road, who knows how they're going to be doing, but I might be making a little bit more money now. The way I see it, I can negotiate my salary up as I grow, and collect this cumulative knowledge from different industries and kind of combine it into this one collected toolbox that I can just carry around with me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of thinking about it. And especially like what we've done, and we can pull up your LinkedIn profile here in a second, is we've done a really good job already of quantifying the impact of your work.
Hmm.
And as if you're doing that along the way, that gives you tools to leverage during the negotiation process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you want to
I
go
sh-
ahead and pull up your LinkedIn?
yeah, let me go ahead and share it real quick.
So I don't think I've seen your resume this year.
Really? Okay.
No. So
Interesting.
if those are who are listening, it has not gotten the John David seal of approval yet. I think your LinkedIn looks pretty solid though.
Yeah, so this is I'll change the window when we go back to it, but
Hey, let
yeah,
me
here's my
just
LinkedIn.
maximize this so I can see it better. Awesome. All right. It's really small on my screen, so I got to zoom in a little bit. Um, yeah. So, okay. Taking that insight that we found just earlier on in this conversation, you may want to research what specific role you want. So,
Hmm.
business analyst is really vague. to
Yeah.
where maybe you could say operations analyst or supply chain analyst. It's cool that so for those of you who are going to be listening to this later as a podcast episode, I'm looking at Hunter's profile and we're looking specifically at the headline underneath his name. So right now it says Hunter Brown, business analyst dash host of How to Get an Analytics Job podcast. So this is a conversation that me and Katie have had actually. It's cool that you are hosting the podcast. I don't think that someone who is an analytics manager is going to see that as value additive.
Okay.
So I think what you're doing there is that's cool. But I think that if you would put maybe either the tools or, the specific types of projects you've worked on in that headline,
Mm-hmm.
I think that might catch their eye a little bit more. Because when recruiters are searching on LinkedIn, that's what they're going to see. Is they're going to see your profile. What your profile picture looks great. You look young. You might want to take a newer photo. When did you take that? Like freshman year?
That was sophomore year, second half
Yeah.
of sophomore
You
year.
look like a baby in that picture. So you could get that updated, but you're in like a blazer with a collared shirt on. It's very High Point University aesthetic, I have to say.
Yeah. Most High Point University students have a tie, but I opted for not the
Wow.
tie. I want everyone to
I didn't
know.
realize I was on the call with a renegade.
Yeah,
Little
I want
Maverick.
everybody to know that, you can just sit down and have a drink with me. You can just talk to me.
All
I'm
right,
very approachable.
so we got a question coming in from Jamie Favor. I think I'm saying that right. For the headline, should it be specific, like healthcare analyst instead of data analyst? I think so. I think the more specific you can make it, I guess there's trade-offs to that. To where if you were to just put healthcare analyst, that might open you up to a wider range of jobs. But if it's like, I don't know, clinical research analyst, like of the umbrella of healthcare jobs, it's going to be more specific. So if you know the job that you want, which I think, Jamie, we've talked before, I think you're trying to break into the space. If you know for sure this is absolutely what I want, go specific. But as far as breaking into the space now, it's a toss up. So the general advice that I've given, and it's interesting having more people on the team because now we'll have like nuanced conversation and debates. My advice has been the job title that you want, you could put business analyst, data analyst, and then the tools. But someone has recently pushed back on me saying that is almost an indicator that you don't currently work in the space, which I don't know if I necessarily agree to that, because we're having a lot of our students who actually, let's do this. Hunter, will you pull up Drew Zemet's profile, and then let's look at Diane. Let's see what they're doing, because Drew's doing a fantastic job. So he put data analyst. So Jamie, to your question, he's putting kind of the broad term and then using data to drive business decisions. So that's kind of just like a broad tagline right there. But this is working. Drew has had a whole number of recruiters reach out to him. I think part of that, and we might be over fixating on just the tagline here. I think the attribution of why he's having so many people reach out to him is that, Hunter, pull his profile up again.
Okay. Yeah.
He's got like what, almost 8,000 followers at this point.
He's got 7,800 followers.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with the quality of the posts that he's making. If you look at Drew's posts, they're covering. He's fully covering the work that he's doing. Like he'll make 7-page articles talking about like a dashboard that he created and the steps that he took. He's just really thorough with his work, and I think people notice good work on LinkedIn.
Well, and I have to say him, and I think pull up Diane Greer too, because she's doing a fantastic job. She took kind of the principles that Ian taught them, and then they just ran with it because she's at what, 5,000?
She's at 8,900.
Oh man, it's so small
9,
on my screen. Interesting. Yeah, and what does her tagline say?
Business analyst, data informed analytics.
Yeah. So I think what you could do, Jamie, is decide whether, do I want a specific job title, and then that's what I'm going for. And then that should inform your resume, your LinkedIn brand, and the jobs that you're applying for, and also the posts you're making. Or, do I just want to break into the space and maybe I have a background in healthcare and I want to just get in. So then you can go kind of broader there. But I think really the biggest thing that's going to drive people to your profile is making sure that you're having value additive LinkedIn posts. Because I think that we see this all the time where people get really into posting on LinkedIn. And it's like maybe they've got 2 months of good ideas, and then they start just posting like random things and then like selfies and stuff like that. My take on it is I would dial back how much you're posting, because then it almost sends like a red flag of like, oh, this person's on LinkedIn all the time. Why is that the case? So, all right, Hunter, let's pull you back up. I think this is cool. We haven't done one of these live sessions where we can just like interact with students in real time.
Yeah.
So keep the questions coming. Jamie, that was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a great question.
All right. So scrolling down, well, actually, before we scroll down, you are open to work, right? Yeah, because I saw the strip.
Absolutely. Open to work.
So see this one right here, this depends on if, Hunter, you're not currently, you're working for me, but on a very part-time basis. So you're not going to ruffle my feathers. I'm not like, wait, Hunter's working for work? What? I got to have a stern conversation with him. So it depends on whether, you care if your employer sees that you're open to work or not. So there are two options there. You can put like that green strip. I think that helps a little bit because, if a recruiter is searching for, analyst in High Point, North Carolina, Hunter's profile, they're going to quickly see that, oh, this person's looking for a job. So that might, be like a little micro optimization there. But to play it safe, you can actually toggle on open to opportunities, and only recruiters can see that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just like a little nuance point there, but keep scrolling down. So let's get to the meat and potatoes here, because like your profile looks so much better now.
Yeah. So before we did the work on this, my about section was really long. It was almost like a thesis. And we went through, and I was kind of branding myself as a graduating student, which is not really where my experience is at. My experience is at closer to. We'll talk. I guess we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk. That's the next point of like, where can we dial you in? Because I feel like 70 is low for you. Especially because like we're placing analysts at much higher than that who have less experience than you.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying is I feel like we went through and we kind of highlighted exactly what I've been doing in the about section, which is nice. And then we quantified it more, which I think this looks. I don't know about you, but this looks really good to me.
Yeah. I remember we did this 2 Sundays ago, and it looks
a couple Sundays ago,
just so much better.
And we went through and quantified. I just clicked see more on all of this.
Right. So you have experience as an intern, and what's cool about what you've posted as your experience. So for those of you who are going to be listening to this as a podcast episode, we're in the experience section, and he's listed my company, Silvertone Analytics. He's worked there for 1 year and 10 months. The first role was intern, and you were doing kind of menial tasks. Scroll down a little bit so I can see it. So yeah, so you were just essentially answering like course questions on my Udemy course for Power BI, Tableau, and Excel, which honestly, that's really good experience for someone starting out, because your job is essentially to just go search for answers. So you got to learn the interface, inside and out across multiple platforms. But at the end of the day, though, it's not like you're leveraging the tools to drive a business decision or impact the business in a bigger way.
Right.
Then you were an intern from May 21 to November 21, then jumped into an analytics consultant from December 21 through present. And then there, you started listing out. So you created the analytics infrastructure for 750 million organization in Tableau. That's a huge talking point. And this, getting back to, entry level versus mid to senior, I don't think that very many entry level candidates that you're competing with, especially people who are just graduated college, have any experience like that. So you may be able to jump the entry level and jump to mid to senior. This is actually kind of a debate that me and Katie have been having. Because like right now, it's like saying that you've worked for 2 years as an analyst is a little disingenuous. And, you know, she would, in the interview, she would probably ask some clarifying questions around like, well, you know, what was the work volume?
Hmm.
To where that, you know, I just don't, Hunter, I just don't want you to like go and apply only for senior level jobs and then just get eviscerated in the interview
I mean,
process.
I personally, I think that you have more faith in me when it comes to senior level jobs than I do. I think that I'm closer to a mid-level role at the moment. Um, thinking
Yeah, well, I
in
mean,
terms
think
of
about like the person that we just placed recently that got a $54,000 pay increase.
that's true.
I looked up the details of the job. She didn't have the technical skills and she didn't have the business acumen, but they liked her in the interview and they gave her a job for 85,000. And you
Yeah,
have way more experience than
I
the
do.
student that we just placed.
I do. That's true. I think another aspect that maybe is less tangible that is still I think still plays a role is the fact that I am younger. Um,
Yeah,
it's hard to distinguish in my generation the difference between good students and bad students because they can all look very similar. Uh,
and they also have Chat GPT too. So
yeah, well, yeah. So another thing is like all students are pretty good at social media. Pretty much every college student could put together a solid LinkedIn profile if they had to.
yeah,
Um,
but Hunter, what I think that you I was watching some podcasts and they said something really interesting. They said that identity lags reality by like 1 to 2 years. So how you feel about yourself is kind of like it's backdated to where your episode with Marina from
yeah,
Amazon.
yeah,
I mean, she doted on you on the episode. She said, "Hunter, you're so much better of a communicator. You're just sharper. You're more put together. You're more thoughtful. You have things to pull from to where." These skills that you're developing on the podcast are one-to-one transferable to the interview process.
absolutely. Yeah, and I don't disagree with that at all. I think that it's been a great help for me prepare, especially because uh, sometimes it can be a little bit daunting hopping back into interviews after so long not having to. Um,
Right.
and but it's less of that for me because it feels like I've been pseudo interviewing people on here for a while now. So I kind of, and then I get other people's perspectives as well. They ask me questions. Um,
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I remember, 9 months ago when I was like, Hunter, I want you to host some of these episodes, and you were so scared about it, and now you're like, oh, I can handle this.
Yeah, well, it went from like, yeah, but I need to have like a week to write my ideas down, and I need to record the episode, and all this like whoa, and now I've had pretty much 2 weeks in a row where I've had a one-on-one interview with people who are far more advanced than I am. I think it's just a confidence thing for me. Um,
Yeah. And see, this is where I'm still digesting the interplay between me and Katie because Katie is like, she likes to kind of be conservative, and I'm like, no, you're amazing. Because I remember while we were building this out, I was like, Hunter, you could get an $80,000-$90,000 a year job, and the thing is, I think you could at this point, you probably could land that salary. Now, the downside of that is that you are going to be extremely stressed for 3 to 6 months
yeah,
like trouble like it's going to take a hit to your mental health because
yeah,
you can get these jobs and it's all about how you sell yourself in the interview process, but I think the reality is somewhere in between me hyping you up and then where Katie's like, let's be conservative on this. It's probably like somewhere in the middle there.
uh-huh.
But I mean, that's what we're going to start testing all these hypotheses because I mean you started applying now, right?
Yeah, yeah, I've applied to probably 50 or so positions in the past 5 or 6 days.
Perfect.
I've been trying to make at least 10 a day. Um, I think I think it's good to get my name out there, but I don't want to go overboard by doing a bunch of easy applies. I found that easy applies sometimes it's difficult to discern which ones are legitimate and which ones aren't. Sometimes they won't get back to you because they just have like thousands of applications, and they just don't have the resources to go through all of that. Um, yeah, I don't know what it is, but I've been trying to more tailor my my applications to be
Well,
more.
it's a little bit early yet.
It is.
Like the Gartner interview, that the timing of that didn't line up right. So
Right.
it's like, let's start kind of building the hopper now, because it might be, Christina, who was in your lecture last night. I mean, she was applying for jobs for 6 weeks. I think she applied to 250 jobs in 6 weeks, and then didn't hear anything. Was all discouraged. In week 7, she had 2 interviews and 1 offer. So it's like
Yeah.
there's a lag between like what you put in versus what you get out.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's important to follow up with recruiters as well, even if you don't get a position. Like if I had just taken the beating from Gartner, it's like, oh, I didn't get the job. They just must not. They must have just had a better candidate. They didn't like me. Like I would have just been in my own head thinking like maybe I wasn't qualified, but I just reached out. I was like, hey, what was the determining factor? Um, and they had
okay.
no problem letting me know that.
So over the next 3 months, so keep like applying. I think the goal we've set for our students is 250 applications.
Hmm.
So apply for 250 jobs. Post on LinkedIn. So I think we probably need to have Ian on, and like let's build out some LinkedIn copy for you.
Yeah.
Because like although I mean you've what, tripled your LinkedIn following in the last month?
In the last month and a half, 2 months, I went from 500 to 1,500
Right,
followers.
and
So
you're not even. I mean, I'll be honest, Hunter, you're not even posting like that regularly.
I'm not posting every day. I'm posting probably once every other day or every 3 or 4 days. Um, I don't know. It's difficult for me. It's kind of like a job. Um, where it's
Well, yeah,
just
that's kind of what I want to reframe. Like your biggest job right now is to get a job.
right.
Like
Yeah.
that's yeah, I think that's a good frame to think about it, because you should be taking this very seriously, so that by the time you graduate, let's say you have 2 or 3 offers, so you
Right.
can then leverage them against each other to negotiate, $10,000-$15,000 more of salary.
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah.
like, Hunter, I don't know if you've thought about it from this lens, but starting your career at $20,000 higher than the rest of the people that you graduate. And it's also, I'm competitive too. Like I want you to make $15,000-$20,000 than the average High Point University student, if I'm being honest. Which I think is
I
what's
do too, believe it or not.
yeah. Well, and yeah, I want you to just dunk on all of your like all of your peers. um, but starting at that is an anchor point right there. So if you start at $20,000, well, number one, you're going to be working for the next 30 years. So what's 20,000 times 30? That's what, $600,000. That's a difference of $500,000 lifetime earnings.
Right. Well,
But
it's
it also sets
negotiating.
you on a trajectory to where you're probably, I mean, I guess it's sink or swim, and this is on you to kind of like do the work as you go along.
Yeah.
But if you start at a really strong job, because I mean, Megan Lou's a great example of this. She's got a killer job, and then I think she's gotten a significant pay raise over the last 2 or 3 jobs that she switched.
Hmm.
So like it's not only that you start higher and you're probably going to be earning quite a bit more than these students, but then you also get on a track where you have an upward trajectory.
I was gonna say it's even the first job, if it's even $10 or $15,000 higher than average, um, that's the next negotiating up to the next level is significantly easier. And the next level, instead of being from 60 to 80, is from 80 to 100 or from 80 to 110 or something like that. It expedites the process for me.
Right.
Yeah. We have a
All
couple
right.
questions, by the way.
Yeah, I was about to
Yeah.
say, I think we've hit on catching up, the Gartner experience, your LinkedIn. We've missed your resume, which,
I have it.
um,
I have it open. I don't know if you wanted to.
okay. So let's look at your resume. And for those of you who are tuning in live, start asking questions, and we're gonna finish out the last point that we're gonna talk on is starting pulling in your questions. So I see that Jamie's asked another question, and
Manish?
Manish,
Manish?
yeah, Manish has got another question, and it looks like Paula's got a comment that we can comment on too. So leave us some questions that we can pull in the chat to make this a little bit more interactive.
Yeah.
So yeah, Hunter, let's see your resume.
Alrighty.
And I think we'll probably do an episode with Katie where we'll pull in your resume and get her perspective on it.
Uh-huh.
Let me see here. All right, it looks pretty. Just first perspective, like first take of it, it looks really neat and organized, which is good.
Thanks.
So here, scroll up a little bit more.
This is just
Okay, so you got Hunter Brown, you got your phone number, Gmail, LinkedIn. Where is your portfolio?
I've got to link it on here actually.
Yeah, so add your one note to make is add your portfolio on there. Add it into that header too.
Okay.
Also, are you going to do a Tableau Public or are you going to do a Maven Analytics portfolio?
I was thinking of making a Maven portfolio
I
because
think that'd be a good idea.
I can include my Power BI work on there as well.
Well, so with Maven, for those of you who listen, they're one of our strategic partners. Um, they have created a platform where you can post SQL, Tableau, Power BI, Excel, and then also too, I think you can do other tools and just take screenshots. But they've developed a portfolio, analytics portfolio interface. So
Mhm.
that's a really, really solid idea. Oh, and the big thing is that you can add in videos. So that's a really, really solid tactic to getting a job is if you can send a potential future employer of yours a video of you presenting findings, that tells them so much about you. So number one, how do you communicate? Number two, they can see like how you think. They can see you actually in action, like analyzing data. So for sure, Hunter, I think go with the Maven analytics
Yeah,
profile.
absolutely.
Okay, so interesting point with the summary. So you just bullet pointed out 3 sentences. Why don't you just turn that into just remove the bullets and just turn that into a small paragraph.
Okay. I'm just gonna make a note here.
Yeah, so just make some notes. Okay, so minor in economics, high point, cumulative 3.7. That's a good GPA. It's much higher than mine. I think I had a 3.0 in undergrad. I just partied too much. Okay. So one thing now that you're going to have more room now that you're removing the bullet points, you'll have like 2 or 3 extra lines.
uh,
Add in more relevant coursework because I know that you were required to do multiple Excel classes. I know that you're doing a SQL class right now,
yeah.
so that'll just add in some value there. So that's one thing that I think a lot of people miss as far as education goes. They just put their degree and then that's it. And I guess in certain situations, like if you have a degree in history, of course you're not going to have any relevant coursework. But if you got a business degree or an analytics degree specifically, add in that relevant coursework, and that'll just help boost the keywords for your resume, so you'll more likely pass an applicant tracking system if you're applying for a bigger company. But it also tells a much richer story about like who you are, just as a potential candidate for a job.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm going to zoom in on here. So experience, analytics, project manager.
Would it help if I zoomed in like this?
Yeah, that helps too. Okay, so one thing that you are not doing, Hunter, is put the big win first. So, like, I guess the big win here for the project managers is 70 to 110,000 annually. Although maybe we should rephrase that as, what is the average pay increase, which is what, $32,100?
Yeah.
So yeah, so put that first. Although it's cool that we can kind of flex on the podcast and say, hey, this is our outcome for our program. But what your manager is not going to care about the career services work you've done. They want to know the data. So I think you need to reframe this. So the analytics project manager, so you've managed what, 4 cohorts now of working with a partner client. You've developed Power BI. You've managed a team of like what, 8, 10 people.
Yeah.
So that's the frame you need to go with. Not you're like basically trying to sell my services, which is geared towards direct to consumer, like those who are trying to break into the space, versus you're essentially making a business to business deal. So you are talking to an employer who's going to hire you. to get a return on their business. Not, you're not talking to the individual there. So just
Right.
kind of reframe that.
Yeah. So talk more about team leadership.
Just talk about like like this is an analytics resume. Talk about the analytics work you've done, not the career services stuff. I mean, the career services stuff is cool, and I think that's kind of the thing that you and I need to get square on is just kind of like the header for your LinkedIn. Like the hosting the podcast is cool, but I don't think it's value additive for an analytics manager.
Mm-hmm.
And don't worry, like we can bring Katie on and she can give you, direct analytics manager input on like how she sees it. So like this doesn't have to be perfect, but we're kind of getting a little bit into the details here. But for those of you who are listening, I get this question often with my students of, how do I build my resume if I don't have relevant work experience? Talk about the numbers that underlie all the work you're doing. Even if you're a teacher, you could say, I increase student grades by 13%. I did X amount of, hours with students. So you want to quantify it and then talk about the numbers that underlie it. So essentially what you're doing is you're turning any job. It doesn't matter if it's, a teacher job or if it's a marketing job, you're thinking about the numbers that underlie it and you're seeing it as an analyst. So Hunter, I need you to take that same frame and apply it to your experiences here.
Okay. Absolutely.
Kamar's got an interesting point. So he said, sell your work, not the company you worked at. Yeah. So it's a nice little frame there.
Yeah.
All right. So the inventory manager and the concierge member, you could probably remove concierge member.
Yeah.
Imported daily.
I was actually thinking that.
Improve the daily lives of. So I'm picturing you like essentially like being a bellhop. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Not.
Did you have the little bellhop cap?
Not too dissimilar. Not too dissimilar at all.
Oh, concierge member. Yeah, Otter. And the thing is here, you're gonna have what, a year work gap, which I think is fine because they see that you just graduated college, so they're not like that. That's another thing too. You can use education as a fill-in for like gaps in like your experience. So if you've been unemployed for a while, going back and getting a degree is a viable option to kind of reset. Because typically employers are not going to ask like, oh, I see that you got this degree. Well, what were you doing before that degree? It's kind of irrelevant because you're like, well, I went and got this degree to retrain and build my skills up to change and pivot careers. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would just remove.
I will say from a service capacity, I think working for concierge, that if there's anything it did for me, it helped me deal with people, I guess.
Yeah.
I think maybe I would remove most of the lines for it, but maybe just like leave one or two lines in there just to show that I was in fact working then. I don't know.
What I think you should do? Remove that and then add in the 3 different roles you had at Silvertone.
You're right.
Yeah. So you're not taking as much of you're not capitalizing on the work experience you've had under me for the last 2 years.
Right.
Because like right now, analytics project manager, that's really vague. So where what you could do is break that into analytics intern. I would say business analyst as opposed to consultant. I think business analyst, especially if you're applying for full-time jobs, like that's going to resonate more. And you can also say analytics technical trainer. But that's true.
Make the resume match LinkedIn, pretty much.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I feel like we're off to a good start with that. And then because we'll just go through multiple iterations of this. And then the big value add will be when we have Katie on and she can give you some specific advice.
Yeah, and at that point I'll also be probably mostly done with the SQL course that I've been working on. And so maybe we could talk about how to incorporate that into my resume as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's jump into the Q&A section here. So Manish is asking, following on the last question, what if someone is not seeking for a specific analyst role? Any analyst position would do to start out, or is this not a good idea for a job search? I think that's where most people fall in. Most people are like, I know that I'm not happy being a librarian or whatever job. And they just want to, maybe they took a couple online courses and they're like, oh, data seems really interesting. If that's the case, I think targeting business analyst or data analyst is that's a good term to target, because these are really flexible definitions. So you might be a business analyst that works in sales on the sales team, or you might be a business analyst that works on the supply chain team, and they're completely different experiences. So Manish, my experience would be, if you don't know what specific role you want, target business analyst or data analyst. I think data analyst is the easiest job to get right now. We've placed someone with no college degree in a data analyst role. So I think that's a little bit easier than business analysts, but the difference between business analysts and data analysts is that it's implied that it's a little bit more technical than business. So the business analyst, your main thing is focusing on the business acumen and like, how does sales work? How does marketing work? How does finance work? And then there's some data that underlies that, to where a data analyst, you're more focusing on actually crunching the numbers and less so on the business side of things. Also, too, one kind of additional idea I've had is, I think this is the first time you and I have interacted, but you could go back and like audit. I don't know how extensive your work history is, but you could go back and say, I worked in a sales job, I worked in a warehouse job, I really liked, the operation side, like Hunter was saying. So you could reflect back on your work experience and how it's resonated with you to then come into some more specific titles. So one tactic we're doing with our students is to create separate resumes. So one is for, a business or data analyst, and one is like supply chain analyst or marketing analyst. So that way you are getting the broader umbrella, but you're also narrowing in on very specific terms. All right. So Paul, I think this is a comment on Hunter, like your progression. So I agree with John David. Paul is saying, I have domain knowledge, but need to hone my technical analytics skills. I had an interview for a DA role for $80,000. Not bad for knowing nothing. See, Hunter, like these people who don't have like any technical skills are getting $80,000 a year.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say, I don't know, maybe Paul's being self-deprecating a little bit to know nothing. So why do you feel like why 70,000?
It's just the age worry. It's the age worry. I don't know. I think that
age is just a number. Haven't you heard?
It is because I've been communicating with and teaching people that are older than me, and I don't want to come off as just like, I mean, I've got that. You keep saying I have that young man energy, and it's a good thing until the company you're trying to apply for starts looking at you like you're a young man, and then they're like, oh, young man salary. So I guess that's kind of what I'm thinking about there.
I think it's the energy you bring in. If you bring in like, if you come in meek and you're like, I'm just this little guy, I don't know what's going on, help me. If you're like Morty from Rick and Morty, of course you're gonna get paid less.
Do I seem like Morty from Rick and Morty?
I feel like you started off very much in the Morty camp, and you've like you take up more space, and you host meetings, and yeah, I mean, you were never like Morty from Rick and Morty, but you take up more space, and you're more confident, and you're more sure of yourself. And being part of that is like, even when you're not sure of yourself, you say what you think.
Oh, for sure.
Confidently.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is just a head game.
Yeah.
Because like, even if it weren't your age, it would be, I don't have SQL knowledge, or, I don't have business knowledge. Like that is just like your own internal game that you've got to play. And what you're doing is you're essentially sorting yourself out of the candidate pool before they can even make a judgment call.
I suppose I am.
You don't
And
seem convinced.
no, I mean, yes, yeah, I probably am doing that. It's just, I think for me, it's more of like reflective, where I want to determine um, what I am still lacking in, and go into the interview knowing more about that area, I suppose, so that if I'm asked a question related to that, I feel like I could answer it.
We got Katie.
We do have Katie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you've been like hiding away from her.
No, no, I went to her. I went to her call literally this week.
You've been hiding away from Katie.
I'm
All
not
right.
hiding.
So Paula was saying she has skills in Excel and SQL, Python, and Tableau, but I guess to follow up to that last comment, she hasn't applied it yet. So
Mhm.
Hunter, I mean, you've done the work, you've applied the tools to build things out. I think you should feel more confident than you are.
Okay. I will.
All right, so James got another question for us. How much do you alter your resume per apply? We kind of hit on that in the comment from Manish. I don't think it's a good idea to change it every single like that. That just slows down your overall like the volume you can send out. I think it's a good idea to build out specific templates. Um, so like you can have a business analyst job, or you can have like maybe two or three different versions of. Well, I think Jamie, you said healthcare, so it could be clinical research analyst. I don't know, payroll healthcare analyst. I'm not really healthcare is not really the space that I have a ton of knowledge in, or HR analyst. And then you could have like four versions of your resume, and you just go on LinkedIn jobs and search for, save that search, that specific job title, and then you go and send that specific resume to it.
Work with service-based data, because healthcare is a service-based industry primarily. Sure they have medicine and whatnot, but um yeah.
What do you mean?
Work with like service-based data, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example of
Okay, so well, the question's about the resume. How
yeah,
much do
but
you
you
alter
want
your
you want
resume?
to you want to incorporate your portfolio on your resume though. I feel like your portfolio and your resume are hand in hand.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like
S-
customizing a portfolio for each one of the resumes.
Customize a portfolio, feature the work for the company that you're applying for that's most relevant to them, I suppose is what I'm saying.
Okay, she's actually got a question on portfolios. Hunter, do you have a portfolio when you were applying? Are your projects directed towards your specific niche industry? I feel like we answered this question before we got to it.
Yeah, I literally just answered this question. I would, if I'm applying to a company, I would try to send them the most relevant work that I've done first.
Do you
Um,
understand the underlying thinking behind that?
uh, Not necessarily. No, I just am
Okay,
trying to.
so what 99% of the courses online do is they give you random data. So it's like Tom has 6 cherries and Penelope has 4 apples, and it's just like random data that's irrelevant. So where your portfolio will really stand out if you have data. For example, if you want to be a sales analyst, if you can get your hands on some realistic or real Salesforce data and analyze that, because then it shows that you understand the KPI, so the key performance indicators that underlie it. So it shows that you have the full spectrum. Not only can you analyze the data and build out a portfolio, but you understand the game that's being played. So it shows like a 360-degree view of, hey, this person is a much safer bet than, somebody who just has all this like random LinkedIn Learning or Udemy data that's not specifically dialed into the job.
Hmm.
And it also gives you an opportunity to like have a much more nuanced conversation in the interview, and you're speaking their language, like you're getting the specific vernacular. And I think that that's probably the biggest thing that you're going to be going up against, Hunter, is like having to learn a new business space.
Yeah.
So if you have a portfolio that is modeled after, the realistic setting in whatever environment, it's going to help you quite a bit.
Cool.
So the question was, do you have a portfolio when you're applying? Are your projects directed towards? Yes. You want a very specific niche down portfolio if possible. Now, the data, especially in healthcare, it's going to be tricky because there's HIPAA laws. So like that data I think is really dicey to get your hands on. Maybe you could get like, I don't know, CDC data, like broad, non-specific data. But yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for each individual industry.
Mhm.
All right, so Matter is saying, would it be useful to show my Excel projects I've done at my current job on LinkedIn or on my resume? Your thoughts? Have you signed an NDA? I feel like you can't. If you're doing work for a company, they're probably not going to want you to show the work you've done. This kind of gets into
It's a bit of a moral gray area.
competitive intelligence. Well, I think one potential like step. I like the intention, like showing the work that you've done, but the risk that you run in that situation is that what if your company's competitor gets that data and then they use that to exploit some weakness within your company. So that's the risk that the employers are thinking about. What you could do is like Frankenstein a similar data set that is modeled similar. So maybe it has the same columns and it's just random data and you can analyze it. So you could kind of craft that off of, the work you're doing, but I don't think you should post the work. No, I mean, that's a hard no, actually. Like that's, that might get you not only to lose your job, but there might be a lawsuit there. So it's kind of data privacy. So don't do that. All right, so here's another one. So Adele is asking, what if I'm looking forward to interviewing business analytics?
Intertwining business analytics with other disciplines such as strategy and change management for their synergetic effect, especially if I have a solid experience in strategy and change management. Okay, so they're asking, uh, I suppose, how to combine two industries into one. How to combine business analytics with other industries. Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of podcast guests who in their previous work experience, um, they were working for one company. They started off doing one thing, and then they ended up doing analytics work ultimately anyway. Um, I think a lot of industries are like that, where you have to have at least analytics literacy, data literacy. Um,
I feel like Adele is just describing what business analytics is.
yeah,
So I'm seeing strategy and change management and data. That's essentially that's what I do. I'll go into a company's data, identify opportunities where they're underperforming. So maybe their sales are low, or maybe they have a specific product that has a huge margin, but they're not promoting it, and they're promoting products that are, I don't know, losing them money. So I go in, study the data, give them business recommendations on how they can improve. So Adele, it sounds like what you're describing is just being a business analyst. It's kind of a spectrum to where it's like you have data science on this side and the business analyst on the other side. Data science is like really, really robust in like advanced math and coding and all this technical stuff. And the business analyst might be, hey, I know the game that's being played. Here are the KPIs. Let's just drill down on one or two levels down into this and find an insight. So Adele, it sounds like you're already there. Maybe what you should do, if you've been working in change management and strategy, just go and learn the basics of, data visualization. I mean, a lot of these big four consulting firms, or a lot of these like huge consulting firms, are just using Excel to study data. So you might not even have to get that deep into the technical acumen. So it sounds like you understand business strategy, and then it's just a matter of layering in data to drive those decisions, which I'm surprised they're not already doing that. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that's exactly what a business analyst role is. All right. So Manish was saying, "Thank you, John. I'm an accounting and financial professional. I'm more interested in the business analyst role." So yeah, so you could be a business analyst in the finance department. So you could be studying, financial returns to figure out, like what maybe P&L statements, like are there certain clients that we're losing money on, or like how we can interface potentially, like I don't know, maybe like pricing strategy. That's actually something, Hunter, we've done in one of our consulting projects, right?
Worked with pricing strategy.
Yeah, we were looking at margin to determine that. Well,
Oh,
that's the current Yeah, that's
yeah, yeah,
essentially what we're doing right now.
right.
All right. So Batter's asking, would it be useful to show my Excel projects I've done? Oh
We
wait,
we
we've
just answered this one.
did that.
Yeah, we just answered this one.
Weird. Oh, he asked it again. I think. All right,
Yeah, yeah. Better if you go back a little bit, we answered your question already.
gotcha. All right. Also, when is the right time to start marketing yourself as a data analyst, business analyst? I have extensively used Excel for finance modeling and sales, inventory analysis. Now I'm learning SQL and Power BI. Hunter, what's your take on that?
I'd say right now it's time to start marketing yourself
That's exactly
as
what I was going to say.
a data analyst, BI analyst. Yeah, what's the holdup? Why are you waiting? If you want to do it, then you should start branding yourself immediately and start working on it right away.
Well, okay. A potential holdup could be, to play devil's advocate here, is that you have an employer who really needs you, or is, you're not in a good place with your employer. So if all of a sudden you rebrand your LinkedIn and start posting about that, that could cause some friction.
Another
Um,
suggestion I have is to come and join us at the Silvertone Analytics program. Um,
that's
the,
true.
the,
We
the
could,
only
we
reason I
could,
say that is because we had somebody who completely quit their job, was making no income, and we got them a job making $80,000 a year.
yeah, I don't know if I'd advise. That is
It's
such
not
a,
necessarily. It's not necessarily. I'm not. Yeah, no, it's not. By all
that
means.
is such a high stakes tactic, and it paid off. But if it didn't pay off, then I would be feeling really bad.
No, but no. In all seriousness, though, if you're looking to pivot and you're having difficulty getting out of your current job, I would say just start doing personal projects first. Do something that's relevant to the field that you're wanting to get into, and then feature that on your profile.
So Kumar, one of our students, is actually saying, Manish, it sounds like you're already a financial analyst. So just rebrand yourself that way. Like if
Yeah.
you're in the finance space and you're interested about data, I mean, I'm sure if you're in the finance department, you're using Excel. So I mean, yeah. Kumar, you're on the money right there. It sounds like he's already one. Okay, so Jamie had another question. What is the best way to show Excel projects besides pivot charts and tables? Um, Interesting. I mean, I feel like there's a ton of different things you could do here. Well, number one, so if you go to the first struggle with Excel and showing it is that it's like, what, you're not going to send the interviewer, hey, here's an Excel workbook. So you need a platform. The Maven Analytics platform is really solid for just number one, showing your work. Um, as far as Excel projects go, I mean, what we teach in our curriculum is pivot charts and then VLOOKUPs. And that's essentially, you're combining data sets together and then you're building very simple, um, potentially interactive visualizations. It depends on like what work you want to be doing. We don't spend too much time on Excel because I think Power BI is just so much stronger than it is than Excel. But I know that a lot of organizations are not quite there as far as their technical stack. A few other projects you could do is, I mean, we're doing this right now as an optimization model for a client. So you can figure out, okay, like maybe you're optimizing margin. There's a ton of different use cases within Excel. So you get into macros if you wanted to. Although I feel like the more that I talk about Excel, it's like, well, I think macros is just a less polished version of the transform tab in Power BI.
Yeah. Essentially, Power BI's Power Query Editor and its visualization capacity are both far superior to what Excel has to offer. Um, I would say that for data cleaning purposes, I like to go with Excel most of the time just because it's what I'm accustomed to. And a lot of businesses use it for sending over data and data cleaning and all that. Um, I would say for if you want to show off Excel projects, I think it's almost the best answer would be I wouldn't show it off in Excel. I would show it off in Power BI. Load up the data, load up the Excel data that you cleaned in Power BI, visualize it really effectively using utilizing color effectively. Uh, Make sure the UI is really clean, and then upload that to a portfolio piece somewhere.
Yeah. So I think that the advice we're giving might be it's hard because it's not a real time conversation. Because my
Yeah,
first question would be to clarify this like, well, first of all, why Excel? Maybe some more like a different tangent we can go on in this advice is maybe reach out to somebody who has the job because I think you mentioned healthcare. Maybe reach out to somebody who has the healthcare analytics job that you want and see what kind of projects they're doing in Excel and see if you can recreate that. Because yeah, it's kind of hard for us to tell. Like, number one, it's like we don't know what specific projects are relevant for the job you want, and then also what is the best way to do that. It's like there's kind of levels here of uncertainty. All right, so Manish, absolutely, you can send us a DM on LinkedIn. You're welcome. I'm glad that we could give you some help on this. All right, and then so Kumar was saying PDF presentation or using PowerPoint to present your Excel project. Okay, good point, Kumar. So what you could do is just take a screenshot of it and put it into a PowerPoint presentation. Although I don't know, it's funny because they're like analysts, purists, or gatekeepers who are like, this is the worst thing in the world. Like how dare you put
they don't
an
want to. Well, they
image?
don't want to take you out of the software because the software is what gives it the interactivity. Like if you put it in a PDF, it's just like, all right, yeah,
Right,
kind
but
of
if
lame.
we're yeah, if we're talking to someone who wants to build Excel projects, they're not going to be using that level of sophistication, right?
Yeah, it's this question is kind of difficult to answer, Jamie,
Right,
without more information. It's like
right.
we need a bunch more information to answer it correctly. There's a number of different options for you, I guess is the answer.
Yeah, so feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah,
All right, so Rakesh is saying I had 6.5 years of experience in what is BPO?
it's business process outsourcing.
Okay, banking domain and looking for change of career into data analytics. Without Python or R, can I get a job? Absolutely. This is probably this. It's funny. Ian had a viral post and he got so much controversy because he said you don't need to know coding to get an analytics job, and then all the people who teach Python and R came in and just like
Estimated them.
they just they came with their pitchforks and they just like came in and they were outraged. So yeah, I you don't really need. In fact, this is the advice that we're generally giving our students who do want to go into the data science realm eventually. It's a solid idea to get a data analyst or business analyst role, get some experience working with data, and then while you're there, get paid to start developing, Python or R. And that it's very hard to go directly from some other industry or school directly into a data science role. I believe that most data science jobs that you just need to know so much. So I don't think there are a ton of junior data analyst jobs or data science jobs out there to where you can easily get, well, I mean, easy, it depends on your unique situation and a bunch of different factors. It is a much lower bar. Let me phrase it that way. It's a much lower bar to get a data analyst job. I mean, people are even getting data analyst jobs with no degree at all.
Yeah,
I mean, that's Ian. Ian broke into the analytics space without a degree, which makes his story that much more impressive.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right, cool. We've rattled on for an hour and 15 minutes. I think I have a meeting coming up that I got
All
to
right.
prepare for. But Hunter, all right, so your assignment is get that resume cleaned up and continue to apply.
Absolutely, absolutely,
But
will do.
yeah, so 3 months and we're going to get you a killer analytics job.
That's right. It's the name. Don't wear it out.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in the live chat. I've missed this. I haven't done these like live. It's kind of stressful, like doing the live, like having to think on the spot while there are people watching. But I think it's
Uh,
good though because
it's
people
not.
are
It's
getting
not
quick value.
stressful. It's not stressful for you and me.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. And Hunter, thank you for working on this. This is going to be good.
Yeah.
All right.
Can't wait.
I'll see ya.
See you, everybody.